my attention to your organization is that you've just issued a report on American Institute of Economic Research college destinations. And we see many New York State cities. In the major markets, you mentioned New York. In the middle-sized markets, you mentioned Rochester and Buffalo. And in the small markets, you mentioned Albany, New York. What is special about these municipalities here in New York State that you recommend it's a good place for kids to go to college?
It is true that New York is represented well. In fact, and just looking down the rankings, New York State is represented in every single category and near the top of most categories. New York City being number 2 among major metros, and Ithaca being the top college town. We use 12 indicators, and they're broadly classified into academic environment, quality of life, and professional opportunity. And the rankings, the way they're designed, in other words, you have to do well in each of those categories. So, for example, Ithaca does well in each of those categories. New York City, within its class, does very well in each of those categories. And I was very surprised, and that's what's neat about doing scientific research, is that sometimes a place that might have a seemingly better reputation doesn't make it, and other towns show up that you wouldn't think of, and you wouldn't necessarily think of Buffalo and Rochester. They wouldn't come to my mind anyway, as being ranked both in the top 10 of their class as a mid-sized metro.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was specifically must have been reading my mind. I'm going to ask you about Buffalo and Rochester because right now they are 2 of the cities in New York State that are having economic troubles. Albany, to a degree, is immune because we have state government here. We're still not like we used to be. And of course, New York City, to a degree, because of Wall Street and other things, they seem to be immune to the economic problems, but not Rochester and Buffalo. But still, they showed up as 8 and 9.
Well, they would rank even higher if they had stronger economies. In other words, that Syracuse and Binghamton and Poughkeepsie are all ranked fairly high, and the only thing tending to hold them back, they have a decent academic environment and a decent quality of life in the rankings, is their economic situation. So if their economic situation were to improve, all those cities would move up.
Even with the tough economic situation in these municipalities, and I'm sure in other municipalities around the country that you've listed, what about these towns or cities made them important to your list?
Okay, well, the first thing is that they tend to have lots of students. In other words, that's one of the academic environment variables. Another variable in the quality of life is that they have things like museums, coffee shops, bookstores, and so forth, where students can get together outside of the school and meet other students and meet with themselves and so forth. And then professional opportunities like, is there business formation going on? What's the unemployment rate? What's the average earnings in the area? And so forth.
Are there anything that cities like Rochester, Kodak land, or Buffalo, which was so important for steel and coal, is there anything those cities can do in 2010 to turn around according to your research?
Well, again, they just have to do the basics. They can move up in our index just if they improve in those areas. So let me take Albany, for example. I think Albany last year in our research was 19th or 20th in its class of small cities, and now it's 14th. So it's moved up a half a dozen spots. So whatever's going on in Albany is at least showing up in the statistics as an improvement.
To get a clarification from you, in broadcasting, the Albany market is considered Albany, Schenectady, Troy, Syracuse, Pittsfield, Bennington. Hudson, Amsterdam. Are you talking about the Albany market or just specifically the city of Albany?
No, the Albany MSA. In other words, the Census Bureau designates metropolitan statistical areas. So Albany, Schenectady, Troy.
Okay, because I know in Troy has RPI, there's Skidmore up in Saratoga, Hudson Valley Community College in Troy, State University of New York at Albany. So you do Junior College of Albany.
The junior colleges are not included in the analysis, but UAlbany would be Union, St. Rose, and so forth. So this is a very nice area when it comes to going to school.
Now, if parents want to check into your list and find out what municipalities and what parts of the United States you're recommending for their children to go to school, is that information available on your website?
Yeah, if they come onto our website, which is www.aier.org, they can download a free copy of this flyer. And if they want a printed copy, I think the printed copy is $2. Now, we also have a companion book that goes into a lot more detail of the top 40 areas that we rank. But they can actually get the information that we're talking about right now for free by just going on our website and downloading that.
What advice would you give to parents when they review your list about helping their child select a college to go to?
Well, let me give you my personal experience, and this is why I got so excited about the College Destinations Index, which I might mention that was originally developed by Todd Hoffman of Collegia, which is a regional planning firm in Wellesley, Massachusetts, was that I came from a small rural town in northeast Pennsylvania, and it was a beautiful town, and I have very fond memories of it. But when I went off to school, I went off to a small school that was another small rural school that was in south central Pennsylvania. Well, I went from a small area to another small area, so I lost out on internship opportunities and so forth. So other kids that were coming to Shippensburg, where I went, which was a very fine school, if they were coming from Philadelphia, well, they had those opportunities back where they came from.
Sure.
So I would say, especially to parents, if they live in a rural, isolated area, that the destination where their son or daughter goes is very important. Now, if they're already from a large metropolitan area, maybe that's listed among here, then they might go to a smaller, more isolated school and still be fine, because they have those opportunities for internships and so forth in the summer when they go home. So this rang especially true for me. It really resonated.
Now, one of the biggest problems in this nation right now is college tuition. And many kids are graduating from college with tremendous debt, or many parents have acquired tremendous debt, in absorbing their child's college tuition. What sort of economic money management suggestions do you have?
Well, AIER has always been a bit contrarian, so we tend to say things that might go against the grain. There's certainly nothing wrong with going to a very good school that's very expensive. On the other hand, parents might consider, when they sit down with their children, or if the children are adept enough, maybe they're paying for their own school, so they have more interest in how much it costs, is that you might find a school in one of these areas that doesn't cost as much as a pricier school. In other words, a little bit of the research we're working on now is that more important the location or the destination where you go to school than the school itself.